So recently I've unlocked my first overclock for Breach Cutter. As I was excited to check it out, my excitement was followed with sheer disappointment. Minus 460 DPS, reduced ammo in half, and only 1 ammo per clip? I thought to myself, this has to be the worst overclock. Well, I still decided to check it out without any other upgrades, and to my surprise, I was impressed with the damage. However, I had to double check with the original. And it does seem that on a clean setup, they both do very similar damage. I was intrigued enough to test it out with all of the upgrades, so I ran it in the same way I was running my Breach Cutter without the overclock. And behold, there is a damage difference. It only takes 1 spinning death bullet to kill Praetorian, which should take 2 bullets without the overclock, and with this setup it is impossible to kill them with 2 bullets. So I ran some extra tests to see how each upgrade affects spinning death overclock. With the first row of upgrades, you should always pick prolonged power management, as it doubles the lifespan of the beam, meaning double damage as long as the enemy is in the beam. Your second row of upgrades should be always ammo, because I highly doubt that extra 35 damage will be better when you're losing 3 extra beams. And for the wider beam, it will make it a lot easier to hit your targets. However, with a decent aim, it doesn't beat +3 ammo. Now, the next one is the only upgrade that doesn't really matter, so you can choose whichever, as both of them add insignificant amount of benefit. For the fourth row, you should always go with stun instead of armor breaking, because your gun already has 100% armor breaking, but it doesn't show until you choose that upgrade. So it makes it a pointless upgrade when you can have armor breaking and 100% chance stun, which will last 3 seconds. As you can see in the footage, I am running stun instead of armor breaking, and the enemy's armor is still breaking off. It is not as instant, but it is definitely there. Now for the last row, it can get debatable. But not really though. Let's start with Explosive Goodbye. I will be frank with you and tell you that this upgrade is trash for this setup. Especially if you're running Breach Cutter without the overclock. It's just unusable. It does kind of work with spinning death, but you will kill the target before the beam gets to explode. It just makes it pointless when you can run Plasma Trail and have your damage boosted throughout the whole lifespan of the beam. And the explosion really doesn't deal enough damage to be justified. So we're left with Plasma Trail and Triple Split Line. You should always run Plasma Trail, even without the overclock. Let me explain. The Triple Split Line doesn't triple your damage if all 3 beam lines hit the enemy, as I thought at first. It only gives your beam more height to cover, essentially splitting 1 beam into 3. Now, Plasma Trail actually adds damage to your whole setup. In fact, it is the only way you can kill Praetorian in 2 bullets without the overclock, which would make it almost equal to spinning death. And I say almost equal because if you run the same setup, you will usually end up with your beam still spinning after killing Praetorian, leaving it with potential to deal more damage. So here it is, the best way to run your spinning death overclock. From what I've gathered, that is. Now, there is another thing that I should add. Whenever you use spinning death, you get 7.5 seconds to do something else. In this example, you can see that if you choose not to reload, you can switch to another weapon and deal extra damage on top of your beam damage. Or also, you would have enough time to set up a turret or throw a few grenades, which I feel is the biggest advantage of spinning death. However, if you're using spinning death, you have to be aware of your beam's range, as it barely moves from its original spot, which would be the biggest disadvantage while using spinning death, because you will mostly have to use it in close range, risking getting hit. But if you manage to gather all surrounding enemies in one place, it will be an easy clear with just 1 bullet. And if you don't have another overclock, which would be better than spinning death, I highly recommend you try this out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, a like or even a subscription will help me out a ton. I also stream on Twitch if you're ever curious to check me out, so feel free to tag along. I will leave you with some extra footage of how I use this overclock.
Moscow! Plasma deployed. Hate to wait, flare charging. One down! Give me some Lloyd. What's this? Plasma!
The wave is petering out. Wipe out the rest and get on with it.